What is up, Maniacs? My name is Zach, and I am the Milly Maker Maniac. Welcome to our Week 10 player pool video. This is where I take you through who I'm playing, give you an idea of what my exposure percentage is going to be to these different players, and talk through my philosophy and my thought process on why I am going the direction I am going. This week, I am taking some big stands. One thing, as I've been evaluating previous weeks, we've been on a bit of a losing streak. Basically haven't won. We haven't won since week 2, but our player pool has been correct each week. Like, we've had the guys that you needed to win the Milly Maker in our player pool. I just haven't hit the right combination. And really what I've noticed is in week 2, when I won the 16 grand and was top 20 in the Milly Maker and took down a smaller tournament for 10 grand, that week it was a Jared Goff week. But what happened was anybody that I was above 30% on hit. Like, my core, like, big stands hit. And besides week 2, that hasn't been occurring. I've been close with those guys, but I haven't had that guy that was like last week's Drake London or last week's Brock Bowers that like broke the slate. Where in week 2, one of those core guys for me was Malik Neighbors. So as I continue to evaluate, like, what do I need to do to win the Milly Maker and have successful and profitable weeks, as we've hit a bit of a cold streak, I think our process on getting to the player pool we're getting to has been pretty solid. Just need to hit on those big stands. There's an element of just variance that's in that. I mean, you have scenarios like last week where Rome Odunze puts up a 0 spot when the Bears score 47. That doesn't make sense. Or even like last week is just a good example. Just everything went poorly. Like, even where I was right, I had tons of lineups of tight end double stacks with Loveland and with Laporta, but it kind of got washed out because of Bowers. I had one lineup with Bowers last week. Obviously, a big miss on that last week. So getting these big stands are important. And this week I am taking some really big stands. So it's going to be a very polarizing week. Either I hit and I hit big, or I'm going to be basically just forfeiting my entire bankroll that I invest this week. Just want to kind of break that down. Like, my whole philosophy in this is I'm trying to get big wins. When we're playing these big GPPs, I'm not playing to just get them in cash. Like, you're going to lose a ton of money over the long haul doing that. When it comes to GPPs, it's all about getting those big wins, and you're only going to get those big wins a couple times a year. And this week I had a rough week 9, so really want to just go back and reevaluate everything. And I think we're in the right mindset, the right process. We just haven't hit. Like, we've had misses on our big stands. This week I feel pretty confident about it, but at some point this year we're going to hit that big stand, and then we're going to have that week that, makes up for this losing streak when we're playing these big tournaments. So that being said, you can see over here I'm getting a little crazy. Just trying to be right one time. I'm going 50% Jared Goff. Here's my philosophy on this. The Lions got knocked out of the playoffs last year by the Washington Commanders. Obviously, they were one of the Super Bowl favorites. Felt like everything was going their way. They dealt with a lot of injuries late in the season, but they had a lot of hopes going into that game, and the Commanders took away a Super Bowl visit for them. I promise you that Dan Campbell is leaning heavily into that this week. On top of them coming off of a bad loss against the Minnesota Vikings last week. The one thing about the Lions, the one thing that really does scare me about this as I go into it, is John Morton, their offensive coordinator, is not Ben Johnson. What we saw last week, the difference that Ben Johnson made for the Lions. The Vikings were running A-gap blitzes throughout the game, and they just weren't picking them up, and Goff was getting drilled, and that really wrecked the whole game, and they didn't make any in-game adjustments to that. That wouldn't have happened with Ben Johnson. But with John Morton, they seem to be making fewer in-game adjustments. So that's just something we have to be aware of. Also, their offensive line is not as strong. They did lose their left guard. and probably their left tackle for this game in Decker. Sewell will be playing, though, so that's a big part. And at left tackle, they have a good replacement in Skipper. So the left guard is going to hurt, but there's nothing on this Commanders defense that really scares me. That's really like I'm giving you the caveats on when I miss. And what you guys should take away from these videos is when you're watching these videos and you see that I'm taking a big stance on somebody based on the last 7 weeks, you should fade that person. So I'm recommending, since I'm playing a lot of Goff, you should probably not play any Goff this week because I'm probably going to be really, really wrong. But the hours upon hours of research that I put in have this play just jump out to me. So I'm probably still going to be wrong, but I'm leaning into it because I do have conviction in it. I advise you to fade everything I pick because your boy been on a cold streak. But all that being said, this Commanders defense has given up massive games through the passing game year round. I mean, we had I think it was week 3 where they made Geno Smith relevant and Trey Tucker relevant in the Milly Maker. And I don't know if you've been watching much this year, but Geno does not have it anymore, and that team is awful. This just sets up as a really good spot. If they can protect Goff, give him a clean pocket, which I think they're going to be able to do much better this week than they were against the Vikings last week and all those exotic blitz packages that Flores sent their way. I think they're going to come out motivated, and they're just going to run up this score. I could see this being a Jared Goff having a 5-touchdown game. I really like all the receivers here and Laporta. So I'm just going to have all sorts of different Goff combinations. If he has that big game, we are going to have a big week. Other guys that I like Lamar, he's underpriced going against the Vikings. There's plenty of scenarios in which that game hits the under and Lamar has some turnovers, but I think that there's plenty of scenarios where he hits his upside. Drake May playing the Tampa Bay Bucks. Looks like he's going to be very low owned. I like Drake May week in and week out. And I think that this game has potential to be a shootout. I like with my May lineups to have a comeback from the Buccaneers. I feel like if May hits his ceiling, that game has to be a little bit of a back and a forth affair. That's definitely the case in our Baker lineups, but I think it is a likely indicator in the Drake May lineups as well. I think he will likely have to be a back and forth game for May to hit his ceiling. And the Bucs have been struggling in the last few games, but they're coming off the bye. Expect Buka to be a little bit healthier. That they're getting some help back on the O-line. So I do think that game could go off a little bit. And if it does, I like the Drake May side better, but I also will be building some Baker Mayfield lineups with that in mind. Jackson Dart is way underpriced. They're playing the Bears. The Bears' pass defense has been horrific. They've given up a ton of big plays. And Dart has been really good, both in real life and in fantasy. I've been very impressed by him. He's got upside to win a Milly Maker for sure. His stacks are cheap, too. You can stack him with Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton killed me last week, dropped a 30-yard touchdown pass, and he's basically had like a big play taken away from him either by dropped or a bad offensive pass interference call a couple weeks ago. In the last 3 weeks, he should have had big scores in the last 3 weeks. But at 4,300, he's somebody that I'm interested in as a solid value with Dart. So he's easy to stack. It's cheap to stack. And then these next guys are all punts, but I think that they all have the upside to win a Milly Maker, and their stacks are easy. With McCarthy, it's Addison and it's Justin Jefferson. I don't think McCarthy's great, but Baltimore's defense is getting healthier, and they are definitely better than what all the spreadsheets show right now. There's no doubt about that. But I still don't think they're a good defense. They don't have much of a pass rush. They're lacking at corner. And I see outcomes. I really like Addison this week at 5,400 because I think they're going to have to roll coverage over to Jefferson, and that could leave some deep shots for McCarthy. He can throw the deep ball. So I see a path to where McCarthy gets there, and his stacks are just so easy with either Addison or Jefferson or a double stack that to me it makes sense to build. I'll probably have somewhere around 8 to 10 McCarthy lineups. Again, it's low percentage likelihood of him really killing it, but it opens up so much in the slate with that 4,900 at quarterback. Pretty much at this slate, it doesn't look like any value is going to open up. It is one of the things I like. I'm doing this on a Saturday. Normally I do this video on Fridays, but since we've seen the practice reports on Fridays, we got a pretty good idea who's playing, and it doesn't look like much value, or if any, is going to open up this week. So you're going to have to punt either at quarterback or at wide receiver or tight end. I guess you can do it a little bit at defense as well, but like you really can't punt at running back this week, and people are going to want to play expensive wide receivers as well. We'll talk about that when we get there, but if one of these punt plays hits at quarterback, it's likely that that's going to be the path to win the Milly Maker. So I don't want to ignore these guys. I do think that there's plenty of runouts where none of these guys hit, and I think Dart and Goff are really likely to hit, and they're not that much more expensive, so you can still do a lot of the same things within those lineups that you can do with these guys. But if one of these guys hits, if somebody in here scores 25, that could be the slate breaker. So I want to get exposure to these guys. Tua, they're playing the Bills. The thing about Tua is he's also very easy to stack. You have HN, you have Waddle. You know that's where the ball's going. I also think that Dulcich, the tight end who got 5 targets last week, is kind of intriguing in this game at 2,600. So that's another little stack piece you can add to it. I'm probably going to be more around like the 4 to 5 range. And Tua, I think it's less likely that he gets to 25. If he gets to 25, though, you're like guaranteed 3 spots in your lineup, right? Like if Tua gets to 25, then HN and Waddle had usable games, almost guaranteed. So the thing about Tua is when he hits, you have 3 spots in your lineup that are already solid. So that's why I like playing Tua, even though there is obviously on the lower end a likelihood that he hits that ceiling. But this Bills defense isn't great. I was surprised with their effort against the Chiefs last week. They made some positive adjustments, but that you could always have that letdown after a big game when you're going on the road against a division opponent. Like there could definitely be a little bit of a letdown by that defense this week. So I like mixing into probably somewhere around 5 lineups for Tua. And then same thing for Jacoby Brissett. He's played well. He's put up some 20 spots. We go over and look at his game log. Let's look at what he's done since he's been starting. Yeah, so all 3 games he started above 20 points, and we know where those targets are going. Like if we go look at our boy Marvin Harrison over here, who's one of my favorite plays this week. He had the big game last week. First 2 weeks actually didn't have as many targets as I thought he did, but somewhat tough matchups there. And then at tight end, though, McBride has been phenomenal since they've made the move to Jacoby. So I think we lean primarily into McBride on those stacks, but we also want to get Harrison in there as well. So it's a nice thing about all 3 of these pump plays is you don't have to guess on who you stack them with. If they hit, you're knocking out multiple spots on your lineup with those stacks. So okay plays over here. Josh Allen, to me, for him to hit his ceiling, he needs to be pushed. I think there is possibility, obviously we talked about Tua, for them to be pushed, but I think that they're going to try to get ahead in this game by running the football. It's what they've done throughout the year. I just don't see it for him hitting his ceiling, and he's going to be the most popular QB. To me, he's the most expensive. He's the most popular, and I don't see his ceiling outcome being very likely. So I'm going to fade that for the most part. I'll build a couple lineups. He's also hard to stack. Like Kincaid is the one that makes the most sense, but lots of times you don't even need to stack him with anybody because he spreads the ball around so much, and he also has that rushing touchdown upside that takes away from the pass catchers. I'm going to be much lower than Allen. I'll play a couple lineups because I'm not just going to full fade the league MVP, but from a fantasy standpoint, I don't see it this week. Stafford at 6,500, he's getting very expensive, and there's plenty of reason why. He has been killing it. Obviously, he's got 2 awesome weapons, but he's been above 25 4 times this year out of 8 games. So when I'm playing Stafford, I'm definitely playing Puka and or Adams. my thought process there is like when he has these big games, the receivers go off as well. So I really only need 4 to 5 lineups to get those stacks in and have some different combinations with it if he hits and hits hard. I think it's unlikely that he hits like the full ceiling. Again, I like these lower price guys to jump the guys in front of them, their output. And if that's the case, then anybody that's more expensive, that's not top 5, like that's just a bad pick, even if they put up like a 20 spot. If there's cheaper guys that put up higher scores to win a tournament, you want the cheaper guys. So primarily, probably just going to have around 4 to 5 Stafford lineups. This 49ers defense is just in tatters. They got nothing left. It's their JV defense, basically. It's a practice squad defense. So there is that element, but I think that actually favors Kyren Williams more than it favors the passing game. It really, for the Rams, is going to just kind of depend how they get ahead early. Obviously, the 49ers won that game earlier in the year when they played. I do think that there's a potential for a shootout, and I'm definitely building some game stacks out of that. I think it's viable to build game stacks of that game without the QBs as well. So we'll mix in that across our player pool. I'm primarily only playing Puka with Stafford, though. I might need to adjust that a little bit, but I feel like if Puka puts up that 40 spot, that Stafford then does become somebody that's likely to be QB1. Baker, we talked about. He's somebody that you want to play week in and week out. There's always that possibility of going crazy, especially in the second half if they're in comeback mode. Yeah, so I like Baker there. Caleb Williams, I'm pretty low on this week. I think they're just going to run the football with both Swift and Monungai, and Williams will just be more of a system quarterback this week. They're not playing the Bengals. I think it's very unlikely he scores more than 20 points. Darnold has been an absolute stud this year. It's just at his pricing, I like Dart and Goff so much more in that range. And yeah, I don't see a huge ceiling game likely here. The Cardinals, just their whole philosophy on defense is to give up like short passes. They play a cover 4 shell and just try to keep everything in front of them. Bend, don't break type defense. So there can be some chunk plays in there, but I don't really see the scenario where like the play action pass that like it has worked for them throughout the year leads to those really big plays against the structure of this defense, because they're not interested in falling for play action. They'll give up 8 yards at a time. That's just their philosophy, and kind of waiting for you to make a mistake or stall out a drive in the red zone and just get field goals. And in the last game that they played, JSN didn't even have a target in the first half. He ended the game with 79 yards. It's actually his only game of the season where he didn't have more than 96. Let me verify that I'm not making that up. Let's pull this up over here for JSN. So yardage, yeah, against Arizona, it's his lowest total of the year. So obviously, he has been an absolute stud, pretty much 100 yards in every single game, almost at the 1,000-yard mark going into week 10. Pretty crazy. And, that there's probably some element that they want to make up for his bad game there. And he did have, 79 yards in the second half. So there are possibilities where it hits. The more I'm talking it out, I actually kind of have some more interest. So I am going to move Darnold over here. I had him over here initially and then moved him over right before shooting. But the more I talk it out, I am intrigued in Darnold. So we'll go ahead and get him in there. I'll build somewhere around 5 lineups with him. And I'll try to get JSN in more lineups. It's hard this week because there isn't a lot of value. Like, you're going to have to punt somewhere, and I don't want to punt at running back. So Mac Jones, there are some game scenarios where it is back and forth. He had a big game against them earlier in the year. This is one that's sneaky, this game. Everybody, when they played the first time, really just thought that the 49ers are going to get rocked because of all the injuries they had. But he came out and balled out and was like, he was hurting in that game too. It was a very heroic performance. Really gutted it out. But that's been his best game of the year, but it just feels like it's a different environment. I feel like the Rams are going to come in and try to just dominate them. I think the Rams are definitely the better team, and I don't think they're going to get caught off guard this time. So there is a chance that he hits that 25 points, but I think Goff is going to put up a 40 spot, so 25 is not going to do us any good because Goff's putting up 40. All right, let's go over to running back. 2 more big stands here. I'm going to go about 90% Rico Dowdle. The whole philosophy for the Carolina Panthers, we go over here and we look at it. They have made their boy Rico Dowdle the bell cow in 3 games. All 3 of those games are wins, and all 3 of those games, Rico Dowdle has scored 30-plus points. The snap share was massively in Rico's favor last week. He got 25 carries, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have a very solid run defense. They are a good team. Didn't matter. Give the ball to Rico 25 times. We're getting to this 130 mark, and we're getting in the end zone. And this week, we play the New Orleans Saints at home. This is the first time the Panthers are a favorite in their last 19 games. And Dowdle is no longer on the injury report. He practiced in full yesterday. Our boy is going to go off. He's getting 20 to 25 carries. He's getting over 100 yards, and he's probably getting the end zone once or twice. What could kill me here is if Dowdle doesn't get in the end zone, like if they, run play action or something at the goal line or inside the red area, and somebody gets 2 cheap touchdowns. That's where this misses, but I really do feel pretty confident, actually very confident, Rico Dowdle putting up another 130 and 2 touchdown type performance. And yeah, he's getting a little work in the passing game too. It just looks too good. Look at these totals when they ride him. And from Canales' standpoint, they are in playoff contention. Why would they break the formula? What are they going to do? Just because they're playing the Saints, they're going to try to get Bryce Young going? To me, that just opens up a whole bunch of variants that they don't want to deal with. They know that if they give the ball to Rico 30 times, that they're going to move the ball, control the clock, and then they just have to rely on their defense to stop Tyler Shuck a few times, which will probably be another big time of possession dominance by the Panthers. So I'm there. I'm all in. Give me Rico Dowdle. He is in every single lineup pretty much for me, and I feel really confident about it. Now, the next one, Jahmyr Gibbs. He hurt us, and he hurt us bad last week. It was tough. A lot of heartbreak in Week 9. Every single stand I took just missed so hard. Week 9 was probably my worst week at DFS. Jahmyr Gibbs was in well over 50% of my lineups. He puts up a 5 spot. I had Odunze I had 35% Odunze, 0 spot. I had about 40% DK Metcalf. I had about 30% Darius Slayton, which would have been sick if he would have caught that touchdown that he dropped. And then where I was right was at tight end, and I wasn't right enough because of Brock Bowers. All that being said, Gibbs is going to get the ball. Part of what happened last week, too, is they were in a lot of passing situations, and Gibbs was just getting rocked in pass blocking. And so they kind of had to take him out of the game because they couldn't pass the ball with him in the game because Flores was targeting him with those A-gap blitzes, and they just didn't make an adjustment to fix that. This matchup against the Commanders, the Commanders don't do anything exotic. Their secondary is awful. And people are like, you're going to play both Goff and Gibbs? Hell yeah, I'm going to play Goff and Gibbs. Gibbs is very involved in the passing game. For me, part of my thought process and my hope in my Goff start is that one of those touchdowns is an 80-yard screen to Jahmyr Gibbs, who just busts it and gets that big, long touchdown. So, yeah, I'll be playing a lot of Goff together. If I go back and I look at my 2024 correlation charting, let me pull this up for you. I can show you how many times Gibbs and Goff went off together. Here's a Goff week. There's Gibbs at 9. Also had Montgomery. Montgomery is my biggest fear. This is definitely a run out that we could see this week where Montgomery gets to the end zone twice. But I just get the feeling that they're going to lean into Gibbs. He's just too good. Montgomery is a fear. I have built a few Goff plus Montgomery lineups plus a pass catcher. But yeah, Goff to Amon-Ra and JMO. Like, I'm going to have massive stacks of the Lions this week. Let's see if we can find another Goff week here. Was this one that was not? That was a weird one. Here we go. There we go. There's Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs at RB2. Amon-Ra at wide receiver 2. Sam Laporta at tight end 3. So that's the thing with Goff too, is like we talked about a little bit with the punt QBs, but if Goff goes off, he's bringing at least 2 with him. Like, I think this was the only week actually where he just had one guy. This was a funky one. And this week it wouldn't have mattered. Like, Goff only scored 23 and Allen had a 51 spot. So like that wouldn't have done us any good. But in all the other weeks, like, he's bringing guys along. When Goff goes off, I think he had a big week in week 18 too. Let's look at that one. 17? I guess week 16 was the last one. Let's see. There's a few other ones in here. There's a Goff week, QB4. Brought Montgomery along that week. Ooh, interesting. Didn't do it that week. But we're not looking for a 25 spot. We're looking for like a 40 spot. There we go. All right. Well, maybe my philosophy is a little off here. Let's see. I think this was the week they threw some Brock Wright touchdowns. That's always a risk. Like, that's what can kill your Lions stacks, is when Goff does go off, if it's like a Brock Wright scores or Montgomery scores. But this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a week like this. Goff, Gibbs, JMO, Laporta, or the week before that. This is really what I'm looking for. Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Laporta. Like, I have that built out a few different times. So I'm not scared of Goff having a big game and Gibbs not having correlation. Like, lots of times when Goff has his big games, he brings Gibbs along with him. So that is why I'm there. I just believe in Jahmyr Gibbs as a talent, and I feel like they're going to want to try to get him going. He obviously had the 5 spot here, but the week before had a 40 spot, and he's going to be pretty low owned again. If he goes off, just going to dominate the field there. So if Gibbs and Dowdle are RB1 and 2, and our boy Goff is QB1, it is going to be a very good week for me. So that's what we're looking for. Again, I advise everyone watching this to completely fade all my big stands. So do not play Dowdle, do not play Gibbs, do not play Goff, because that is how things are rolling over the last 7 weeks. Fade my lock buttons. Fade them big time. All right, other guys that I like, obviously, like McCaffrey. If that 49ers-Rams game goes off, you'd expect McCaffrey to be a big part of that. So building him into game stacks primarily. It's hard to sprinkle him in at 9K. So mix him in a little bit, but he'll be much closer to that 10% number for me, if not even a little lower. Love James Cook this week. I think that is who they're going to try to run the offense through. And that's a big reason why I don't see Josh Allen hitting his ceiling. Devon Achane, he just is consistent week in and week out. And I think that there is upside this week. Buffalo is very bad against the run. I mean, his low, he basically is getting you 16. Had 1 week at 12, but that was against Cleveland. Much different matchup this week. So, yeah, I think there's upside this week for Achane, and he's got a really low floor. So I like him. Derrick Henry, there's definitely outcomes where he goes off in this game. Obviously, Baltimore is kind of in a win, like a must-win type situation. And I think that they'll lean on Derrick Henry in those types of situations. I like Kyren a lot. He is the only piece out of that Rams game that's really affordable. And this 49ers defense is just destroyed. They have nothing left. To me, Kyren is the one that makes the most sense. And then Quinshon Judkins, they're playing the Jets, who have nobody left. And the Browns just have nobody. Quinshon is the dude. I'm not going to rely on Dylan Gabriel to do anything. So give me Quinshon Judkins. And I really like these two guys here at the bottom. They're my favorites. They'll be closer to 25% out of this group. So in the lineups, I'm not playing Gibbs. These will be the guys. And I also really like building 3 running back builds this week. So I got a ton of Dowdle, Gibbs, plus Kyren in the flex, or plus Judkins in the flex. I need to get to more Cook and Achane with that same build. Obviously, it's hard to do we're going to have to punt some places. So we'll talk about some punt plays. I think Swift and Monungai, everything I was reading, I was trying to find some more about Swift missing practice yesterday. All I could find was his personal issue, but everything I was reading that there was no indication he wasn't going to play. So if he plays, I think he's the more likely to have a 25-plus point game. Monungai showed well again last week, but that was against the Bengals. Let's not overreact to that. But their matchup advantage is massive against the Giants. So I think together, these guys will probably score 40 to 45 points. The question is do either of them score more than 25? And it's hard to say. So my bet between the two would be on Swift, but I'm going to probably have 5%-ish of both. It's just hard with the split. If it was just one guy, if it's just Monungai, he will definitely be around that 25%-ish number for me this week. But it looks like it's going to be both, so it's going to be pretty split. Kenneth Walker in the split backfield did get a little bit of red zone work last week. Has primarily been going to Charbonnet, and I do think, but I think at some point he's going to break some runs. He's just a more talented, more elusive runner. He's less consistent than Charbonnet is, but there's a chance he could bust one off this week in a 5,300. I like him to mix him into like a couple of my 3 running back lineups. And then Montgomery, this is what you all should play. Since I'm playing 50% Gibbs, you know that Montgomery is going to get in the end zone twice, and that Brock Wright will probably score a touchdown, and they'll probably have a tackle eligible score a touchdown too. That is the likely outcome based on how I'm building this week. So since all of you are watching and you know what to do now, you fade my big plays, Montgomery is the guy you need. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. My wide receiver is a little funky this week. So we have a lot of expensive guys over here. Obviously, we know we love these guys week in and week out. Primarily what I find with receivers priced at this price point, though, is like you only need them, or if you need them, they're bringing their quarterback along with them. So generally speaking, I only play guys at this price point if I'm stacking them with my quarterback. So I'm going to have a ton of Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, because I'm playing a ton of Goff. I'm not playing much Puka. I'm not playing much JSN. Between the two, kind of tough. Like, I think it's pretty even of like who's most likely to have like that outlier game that you have to have. But I really think like the most likely outcome for both is to probably score around 20, 25. And if that's the outcome, then like they're just not good plays. As long as there's 3 other receivers that score more than 25, which happens pretty much every single week, then these guys would be bad plays if they score 20. So I'm primarily only playing them with their quarterback. Amon-Ra, obviously, I'm going to get to a lot more with Goff. Jefferson, I'm building him into a few of the Baltimore game stacks where I don't have McCarthy, but for the most part, it's just with McCarthy. Adams is just with Stafford, and then Egbuka, you can mix in a little bit. He's going to be super popular, but again, like if he has a game that you have to have, I think it brings along Baker, so I'm going to be fading that pretty heavily. Where I really like is in this lower range. Waddle is like the most expensive guy that I like just because he is the guy, and I'm not scared of that Buffalo secondary. I'm scared of Tua having a blow-up game and getting benched. But what I've noticed with the Dolphins, when the Dolphins play like good defenses that can just overpower them, Mike McDaniel can't do anything to combat that. The reality is like the Dolphins just don't have the pieces. Their offensive line is bad. Tua is like you're kind of handicapped with Tua because he can't hold on to the ball, so you can't have longer developing plays. He's got to get rid of it quickly. But anytime they're not playing a defense that isn't like super solid, McDaniel comes up with a way to move the football. Like when you watch those games, like what he is doing with what he has is extremely impressive. Like here's a 34-point game. Like they played Baltimore. Baltimore was healthier and it was off of a short week. Obviously that isn't a good indication of what I'm saying here, but 34 against Atlanta. Then you have Cleveland. Like Cleveland's a really good defense, but you play Miami, You play the Chargers, 27. You play Carolina, 24. Play the Jets, 27. Last time they put up 21 against the Bills, 27 against New England. Like, they're scoring points. They've got some duds. They have 3 duds, but the rest of the games, they're scoring 3+ touchdowns in every game. Like, Mike McDaniels finds a way to move the football, and you know that he's going to be doing it through Waddle and Achane. I think they're going to be in a negative game script more than likely, and it just feels like Waddle is the guy that's got to go to. The rest of these guys, like, they are boom or bust for sure. So they're going to kill, like, if Addison misses or Harrison misses or JMO misses completely, like, they're going to kill a lot of my lineups. But I just need one lineup to hit the Milly, right? So the thing about all these guys is they all have big upside. We've seen 40-point games from Addison. We've seen 40-point games from Williams. We haven't quite seen that yet from Harrison, but I think that he has that upside, and now that he has a competent quarterback that can throw in breaking routes with Jacoby Brissett, I think he has more upside than what we've seen so far, just because the circumstances around him are changing. Wan'Dale has had some big games, but generally speaking, he's going to be like a high target guy that doesn't put up huge points. But if he's going to have a big week, like we're seeing these targets, 11, 4, 12, 7, 7, and this is all after, I think the Chargers game was where we lost Malik. So since then, all the targets have gone up. He's had a 30-point game. He's had a 20-point game. I think him being around 20 points is pretty probable this week against the Chicago's pass defense that's just bad. I really like Jackson Dart to exploit that this week. So to me, that game has a chance of being a high-scoring game where you're running through Chicago's run game, and then the comeback are the Giants pass catchers. Slayton is the other one. We get down here at 4,300. These scores look bad, right? 5-1, 4-6, 11-2. This one, he had a 60-yard touchdown called back on offensive pass interference. That was BS. So that becomes a huge score. He would have been right around 100 yards, 3 catches, and a touchdown. So it would have been around 20 there. This game, he was wide open and dropped a big long, or I don't think he dropped it. I think it was just overthrown on that one. But he had a few, I think it was 2 different times he got behind the defense and Dart just missed him. And then last week he dropped a 30-yard touchdown. Yeah, we're looking at, these scores look bad, but when we look at the actual opportunity, he's just missed. And so that's the type of player that I like to attack, because obviously he's going to miss plenty of weeks. We've seen that, but he's getting the opportunities against a really bad pass defense. So we could see that big score. We could see a 30 spot from either one of these guys, Wan'Dale or Slayton, this week. So, and then we could also see a 0. Like I am acknowledging that these are high variance plays, but I just need to get 3 of these guys. If 3 of these guys have big weeks in this price point, then like my lineups are going to just go off. Even if just 2 of them go off, and then I have like the QB stack that I have coming along with me. Yeah, we're in a good spot. What would kill me is if like Puka or JSN has like a 40-point game, but their quarterbacks aren't QB1. Then I'm pretty much just not going to have the lineup that's going to win that week. So like these guys are threats for sure. But at this price point, they really need to hit 40 to like absolutely kill me and take away my shot at winning the Milly Maker. And I think the most likely to hit that 40 spot this week out of these guys is actually Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm going to end up with roughly 30-35% Brown because I'm playing so much Goff. In this range, this is more of our middling range, guys that I could see hitting. Wilson is just going to get a lot of volume, but they're playing, like, we'll see when we get to the defenses, but I'm playing the Browns basically as another one of my big stands, probably around 90%. So I don't see the Jets moving the football much. I see probably a decent amount of turnovers, but even in that, Garrett Wilson will probably get 15 targets. Like he could get there on volume where he has like 10 catches for like 110 yards, and at 6,100, even if he doesn't get in the end zone, like that can pay off. The Browns secondary hasn't been great, so if Fields can find a way to not get sacked, he can get the ball to Wilson. So I'll be right around 10%ish on Wilson, probably maybe even a little bit lower. But I see a scenario where he is usable. And, if he gets the end zone, then there's real upside there. But I really think that they're going to struggle to move the football. Odunze, he broke our hearts last week. A stud off of a dud is something that we want to pay attention to. I really do think that they're going to just try to move the ball on the ground, though, so I'm not going to go heavy on Odunze, but he is mixed into my player pool. Zay Flowers is the chalky wide receiver pick this week. I'm trying to win a Milly Maker, though, and at 5,900, I just don't see much touchdown upside for Flowers. Out of that game, I like Bateman a lot better, like Bateman getting 2 big touchdown passes against this blitz-happy Minnesota defense. I see that. I can see that being a lot more likely than Zay Flowers scoring 2 touchdowns. Or the reality is once they get in the red zone, it's one of their tight ends or it's Henry. That's what they do in the red zone. So to me, if you're trying to get big upside, Flowers is more like Garrett Wilson to me this week, but with fewer targets, I think, where Bateman has upside to get big, long touchdown passes at a lower price. So I'm going to be a lot more in this punt play range. We're going to have to get one of these punt plays or a couple of these punt plays right. So yeah, I'm much lower than the field on Flowers. He definitely could have a big game, but he's not I'll be around 10% on Flowers. I'm going to be well below the field on him. Diggs, I debated putting over here. I'll be around 10% on Diggs with Butte being out. Diggs is the go-to guy, but he's only had 1 ceiling game all year. Look at this. He had against the Bills, he had the 27. Everything else, decent targets, decent yardage, but not something that you really think can win a Milly Maker. So there's a chance, but I think I like taking the shots on the cheaper guys on the team. I actually like Kyle Williams down here, taking over Booty's role at 3K with a prospect with a lot of upside. I could see that hitting. That could also definitely be a 0, but I'll have, 5 to 10 Kyle Williams lineups this week. And I also like Hunter Henry at 3,500 as the better plays. And also you have Demario Douglas here at 4K. So I think just the lower price guys are the better options for the Patriots. Diggs needs to hit a ceiling that he's only hit 1 time this year. If he does hit, to me, that's more of it's more likely to happen in that game stack against the Buccaneers. So if that game goes off, then I like Diggs a lot more. So when I'm building those game stacks, Diggs is more involved. Teteroa McMillan has a hamstring injury. Don't know if he's going to play. He could be somebody that gets removed. Obviously, we're heavy on Dowdle, but you could see a scenario in which if Dowdle's having success, they do have a big play action play or 2 to McMillan. But I think, again, they're going to try to run through Dowdle. And then Shaheed, new addition in Seattle. You would think that they would try to get him a few touches in his first game. He knows that offense playing with Clint Kubiak for multiple years previous to this. So it's not like he's going to have to relearn the offense. He knows the offense. He just has to get some refreshers on it. So he'll be able to just step in and play right away. I could see him getting a touchdown or 2 just for the Seahawks showing off their new toy. He's going to be very low owned. People want to see it first. So this is one of those scenarios where I want to try to get ahead of it a little bit before we see it. So I'll sprinkle him into about 10% of lineups. These punt plays are going to be important this week. We have punt plays over here that are the ones I like better with Williams, Jennings, and Slayton. I think they're all underpriced and they all have big upside. Parker Washington, I think he's going to be the dude for them this week, but I don't think that the Jags are going to be able to move the ball well against Houston. So he's got, limited upside, limited touchdown equity. But at 4,700, he had 7 catches last week, I think. Let's go over here and double check that. I think he was 7 for 7. No, 9 for 8. I don't know who I was thinking of 7 for 7, but 9 targets, 8 catches for 90 yards. At his price of 4,700, that doesn't quite pay off. We need something really in the 20 at 4,700. At 3,700, it definitely paid off, but 1,000 more. He needs a touchdown to really pay off, and I think it's pretty unlikely that he gets it. Tez, I, he's with Godwin and Evans being out. He has been on the field a lot. He's getting a decent amount of targets. So he's got more touchdown upside to me than Washington does. So I like him a little bit better. If he gets into the end zone on one of those long plays that they've missed on a few times, he definitely can hit the score that we need at that price. We talked about Douglas already. We talked about Bateman. Judy is trash, but Judy plays the Jets, and he's getting a ton of volume. His game log is hilarious, actually. Let's go look at this. Judy. Look at these 2, 4, 13, 5, 9, 5, 8, 8, and then just nothing over here. But you could see it against the Jets. They have nothing left after the trade deadline. I think the more likely to come out of that game, though, is definitely Fannin or Judkins. I think Judkins is by far the most likely. So it's possible, but maybe 3 or 4 lineups with Judy. Jalen Lane, I actually like a decent amount. Obviously, we are big on the Lions this week. I don't think we need that game to push back. I think that they would more than happily run that score up after the Commanders kicked them out of the playoffs last year. But Jalen Lane at 3,600 with Debo's playing, but Debo is playing hurt. It seems pretty obvious to me. And Lane was on the field a lot over the past few weeks. I could just see him being the guy that gets the majority of targets and maybe gets in the end zone when they're in comeback mode. So he could be a garbage time run up that you could need in your lineup. Could be the difference in taking down the Milly Maker. Ray McLeod was on the field a lot for the Giants last week. I think he was, if I remember right, it was 80% of snaps that he was on the field of passing plays. I mean, we can't completely ignore that. He didn't do anything with that. So at 3,300, only had 1 target and a good matchup. So some of the spreadsheet bros are saying that you got to get to him. Maybe, but I think I'm much more into Slayton and Robinson there. And Kyle Williams at the min for wide receivers, I think he could hit for sure. Like I think he could definitely get a touchdown. Like if he gets a touchdown, and his touchdown could be like that long play. Like you get one, even if he just has 1 for 50 and a touchdown, that gets you his 12 spot at 3K, like 4X. That could work. And I think he has upside to get 20. Like he is a talented prospect. Heard some positive coach speak about him this week with Vrabel, saying that they're excited to see him on the field. So he wasn't a part of the game plan last week because Booty got hurt in the game, but he was on the field a lot. I think that they will try to get him more involved in the game plan this week. So he's one of my favorite pump plays at 3K. Let's move to tight end. Trey McBride, I think, is by far the best play of the slate. So the way I see this is these top 3 guys, I guess you could throw Kincaid in there, but really these top 3 guys, Laporta, Kittle, McBride, they have 20-plus point upside. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to hit it. If they don't hit it, if McBride puts up a 25 spot, he's probably the guy you need to have. But if these 3 guys don't hit, then this could be a week where like 15 points from your tight end could be all you need to take it down. So I really think this is a week of either one of these 3 guys hits or the tight end that you have matched up with your quarterback does enough for you to take it down. One that I really like for punt plays is Greg Dulcich. Last week, he had 5 targets and 5 catches. And you just know the tendencies that McDaniels has to like find a guy that he likes and then just pepper that guy with targets. You know that the Bills are probably going to be focused on stopping Waddle and Achane, and you know that McDaniels probably knows that, and the Bills are really bad against the tight end. To me, it's like there's 5 targets, 49 yards. It worked last week. It just feels like this is this year's Jonnu Smith. Like once McDaniel decided he was going to Jonnu last year, Jonnu was an absolute stud, and then you see what happens when he goes somewhere else. Jonnu is just a guy. So I like Dulcich at 2,600. I can see a lot of ways in which he scores 15 points, and that is a a massive, like if he got in the end zone and he got 5 to 8 targets and somewhere around 5 receptions, it's like he could be the slate breaker at 2,600 just because it opens up so much value. Like he makes it to where I can get to like a JSN or a Puka with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the same lineup. So these top 3 guys, if they don't hit and have the big games, I think it's likely that a round of 15 spot is big this weekend. And in that case, Dulcich could definitely be the guy. I like Fannin against the Jets. Kincaid seems to be the go-to guy for Allen. So he's definitely becoming more valuable. And then I like Loveland. Loveland's okay. I just think the Bears are going to do it through the run game. But he could get a couple red zone touchdowns, so that's where that would make sense. Otten, with all the injuries, I think he's going to be the safety blanket for Baker this week. 3,900, he's a good value. Same with Henry. Andrews and Likely. Like, I like them a lot matched in my Lamar stacks because they are likely to get the touchdowns in the red zone. And Taysom Hill, you can see the Saints running a lot of wildcat with Taysom Hill this week if Shuck can't do anything and they're looking for a spark late. So he's somebody you can consider, not as a traditional tight end, but maybe he throws a touchdown or runs a couple in. So he's in play at 2,700 as a punt play. All right, a defense. We're playing the Browns. Browns versus the Jets. And yeah, it just feels too easy. We're gonna go out that. Hope Justin Fields throws us a couple turnovers. Like Justin Fields a lot, but this is probably the end. And even if they start Tyrod Taylor, which I think is very unlikely, but if they do, or he comes in, like he's been awful too, holding on to the football a lot. Just feels like a lot of sacks and panic throws lead into turnovers and interceptions. Give me the Browns. Give me the best defense in the league for a reasonable price at 2,900. Other teams I like, Seahawks, Lions, Texans, and Jags against each other. Feels a lot like the Broncos and Texans last week. I could see the Patriots having a decent week. Like you can see Baker throwing turnovers. Like he's had turnover-worthy plays in every single game this year. You can see it happening for the Patriots. And then the Vikings are sneaky. Flores' scheme last week against the Lions worked, and it worked well. But I think it's unlikely they hit. But of the punt defenses, like they seem the most likely to have a big play that is a pick six. So that's who I'm playing at defense this week. Let's jump over and build a lineup. You know what it's going to be. You know that it's going to be a Goff lineup. Let's just go ahead and get our stack in there with Dowdle and Gibbs. Let's go ahead and let's do this as a cheaper version of this. We'll go Lions Onslaught, but Lions Onslaught without Amon-Ra in this one to keep it cheaper. We got J-Mo. Go ahead and plug in the Browns at defense. Leaves us with 5,800. So we got plenty of room here. I think I'm going to go 3 running back in this one. Let's go over here and let's get Judkins. 3 RB build here, leaving a 5,500 at wide receiver, 5,550. Let's go ahead and get Waddle, and then we'll come back and we could go to Jennings here, or we go down to Slayton. I think I'm going to go Slayton. Leaves us 400. I'm good with that. We'll leave some salary on the table. So we got our Lions Onslaught. We got Goff, Gibbs, Williams, and Laporta. Goff throws 5 touchdowns, and we are millionaires because of it. Thank you, Jared Goff. Rico Dowdle, 25 carries, 150 yards, 2 TDs, doing what he does against New Orleans. J-Mo finally gets that big game, 150 yards, 5 catches, 2 TDs, just dominates this atrocious Washington secondary. Jalen Waddle in comeback mode against Buffalo gets a ton of volume, gets 8 catches, 100 yards, 1 touchdown. Slayton finally does not drop a touchdown this week, takes advantage of those big opportunities, and cashes in against the Giants with a couple TDs. One of them being a 60-yard bomb Laporta gets a couple red zone touchdowns. We avoid Montgomery and Brock Wright ruining our lives this week. And then Quinshon Judkins and the Browns just dominate the Jets. There it is. There's $1 million straight cash, homie. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button and leave your comments. Let me know who you think is going to be the slate breaker. Well, let me know what you think about my big stands this week. Is it going to bite me in the ass once again, or am I filing in a bank on hitting all my stands and hitting them hard? I guess we will find out in our Monday recap. All right, my friends, good luck this week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.